I'm joined in studio by Charlie Stewart. He's the CEO of Roger Wilco, a digital marketing agency in the Western Cape, and he's here to talk us through the e-commerce landscape in South Africa. Charlie, thanks so much for joining us.
Lovely to be here, Jerusha.
Now, can you give us an indication of how many South Africans are choosing e-commerce?
Yeah, the e-commerce market's certainly growing in South Africa at the moment. I think in 2014 we anticipate people will spend roughly 6 billion rand online. Sounds like a lot of money, but the context of that is that it's probably about 1.5% of the total amount that we'll spend on consumer goods in bricks and mortar stores. So it just illustrates that the market's still got a long way to go before traditional retailers need to start worrying.
Quite right. So what are South Africans buying online?
Seems as though we're still spending more on books, music and plane tickets than we are on electronics or groceries or fashion items. But the latter category is certainly catching up, and I think that's in no small measure due to the advertising budgets that are being spent on sites like Spree, on Kalahari, on Takealot.
Right. In fact, it was quite funny because just last week the News 24 Live team were having a discussion on online groceries, and I decided I'd be the guinea pig and did my groceries online that week. And it was the most fabulous experience. I didn't have to walk into a store. It got delivered to my house. But I suppose we also realized that it's not actually a possibility for most South Africans at this point. So what type of South Africans are we looking at who are able to do grocery shopping online?
Yeah, there are still some very clear constraints. I mean, I think part of the constraint is geographic location. I think that for many of the retailers or the e-tailers, fulfillment is quite a challenging part of the process. But the bigger obstacle we face is bandwidth and connectivity. I think at the moment about 40% of the adult population in South Africa has some form of access to the internet, but often that access is via cellular phones rather than via PCs. And if you've ever tried to buy something online using your cell phone, I mean, you will know just how difficult it is. So we certainly are seeing some constraints in terms of who can go and make transactions online. I think that part of the market, though, will change and will open up in the coming years. For a long time now, we've been waiting for social commerce to really show some true value. And in the States, over the last 6 months or so, Facebook has been beginning to experiment with in-app purchases. So if you're talking about, say, a particular brand or a product, maybe a watch, on Facebook, and Facebook picks this up, it can potentially then stream an advert for a watch into your timeline with a buy now button. So you'll be able to transact and physically buy that product on Facebook without having to go off to the retailer's website itself. In some of the earlier versions of social commerce, you may recall a few years ago, Facebook had tabs on the landing page, and you could click out and go and visit the retailer store itself. That didn't really work. People wanted to spend time on Facebook for the sake of Facebook. So I think as we see social commerce kick in, we will see probably a greater integration with e-commerce purchasing. I think the same is true with responsive technologies, the way that businesses are developing websites that will work on cell phones, that will work on tablets, and that will work on primary computer screens.
I suppose if we have a look at how South Africans use the internet, it's probably wise and prudent for e-tailers to start figuring out ways that we can buy things on our phones, because really that's what South Africans are using, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. I mean, smartphone penetration in South Africa is just going through the roof. I think tablet penetration is rising sharply too. And we're all, the statistics on the use of second screens as well are quite interesting. Those of us who have PCs will also be browsing on cell phones and on tablets. And I think that a good e-tailer these days will be absolutely looking to target people across all types of devices.
Is it true that it's very, very difficult to make a profit off an e-commerce store?
I think that in a South African context, it's probably more true than it is globally. I think one of the challenges we have here is that organizations, e-tailers, are having to educate the market. They're having to dispel concerns about security. They're having to convince people that they will be able to deliver product. And come in, it doesn't really help that we have a dysfunctional post office. So a disproportionate amount of marketing spend is going on educating people as to the broader proposition around e-commerce. In the States and the UK, e-tailers are able to spend more money on promoting product. So I think that has an impact. I think that the cost of fulfillment is fairly significant. In the last couple of weeks, we've heard that Kalahari and Takealot are due to merge. They're two of the largest e-tailers in the country. I think that between them, they probably account for about 20% of the overall South African e-commerce market space. the primary reason for them merging is to try to consolidate costs, to try to reduce the amount that they are each spending on marketing, to try to cut back on some of the fulfillment aspects of delivering product to people. So I think that that's a concern. I think that a secondary concern and impact from a profitability perspective is that South Africans expect to receive value if they're buying products online. And unfortunately, at this point in time, we're simply not spending a particularly large portion of our shopping basket online. It's unlikely or it's unusual for South Africans to spend more than 1,000 rand, more than 2,000 rand on a single transaction. So even if an e-tailer is selling a product that's got a good margin on it, a substantial component of that profit or element of that profit is going to be absorbed through the fulfillment and shipping process. So until South Africans become more comfortable buying larger value items online, there will always be pressure on margin and pressure on profit for e-tailers.